Up podcast. How are you, Greg?
Doing great today. How are you?
Fantastic. Doing really well. And where are you joining us from?
I'm in the U.S. right now, but I don't know how much longer I'll be here. But I'm on the West Coast right now, and I will be going to Japan again soon. I've been doing a lot of my research and studies over there, so heading back.
Nice. I've been to Japan a couple of times, and really love visiting the culture, embracing all aspects of well-being over there. So I'm sure this will come up during our conversation. But just to bring the listeners along for the journey,
Yeah.
how have you arrived at what you're doing today?
Well, it's actually kind of a sad story, but I had major medical problems. Technically, I'm not even supposed to be alive right now. And it's a little ironic because I worked in the medical field for a little over 2 decades. And I definitely got to see what happens behind the scenes. And I must say, I was not impressed. And even thought to myself, I hope I never get sick because it's so bad. And lo and behold, not only did I get sick, it was majorly sick. I had numerous medical problems, from tumors in my body to a major heart condition, which was already supposed to have ended my life. Told me I needed open heart surgery, which I never got, by the way. I also had a lot of gut issues. My immune system was really terrible, and my kidneys and my liver were really not up to par. I also had like an autoimmune thing where I was getting a lot of inflammation all over my body. So I literally would have points where I literally couldn't walk. The pain was so excruciating. They gave me even the hardest of drugs, from things like morphine and some heavy duty painkillers that literally didn't even make a dent. That's how bad my pain was. Which was very debilitating and really not good for my mental health. When you have pain for prolonged periods of time, I speak from experience now. I have a lot of compassion for it because it really screws you up mentally, and it was very difficult to endure. And that's how kind of all this started. And of course, Western medicine didn't have anything to offer me, and as they tend not to, they tend to like to put band-aids on things rather than find the core problem and the solution to such things. And I will say today, I'm not going to give any medical advice today. I'm not going to make any medical claims or claims for or against products. Everything today is just going to be my opinion. But that's how the whole journey got started. And I tried so many things. I was actually following a lot of different podcasts, trying to find answers. And to be quite honest with you, it was really frustrating because you'd have one podcaster saying you should eat nothing but meat. You'd have some other podcaster saying you should do nothing but vegetables. You got another one saying you should drink alkaline water. Then you got somebody else saying that you should drink natural spring water or distilled water. And it was so confusing because I was willing to embark on the path of health, but it was difficult when everybody is contradicting each other. And I did try all these different journeys, excuse me. And so they weren't helping, unfortunately. And, basically what really happened is I reached a very low point. My low point, I still remember very clearly. I was literally laying on a couch because I couldn't move. And I went to go grab a TV remote control. And when I went to go try to turn on the TV, I literally couldn't. That's how bad my joints hurt. I could not work the remote. And man, I used to be quite athletic. So I broke down. I started crying and I made a prayer, which I think we oftentimes do when we're at our low point. And I don't know why, I just did it from instinct. I just prayed and I said, God, if you can just lead me. I didn't even ask for a miracle, right? I just said, if you can just lead me to the path of what's going to help me and understand this whole human biology better and really figure out what really is the right path and what isn't. I don't know why I said this, but I said, I promise that whatever you show me the way is, I promise I'll share it with others. Obviously, if it worked. And here I am. And my heart condition, by the way, is gone. And my cardiologist was pretty blown away by that. And I actually stumbled upon, so what I do now, so I'm going to tell you how my brain works, because I got a quirky brain. But basically, what I was looking at is actual scientific and medical data. I had to make sure to see who was funding the data, where the data was coming from. Looking at both short-term and long-term research is a very important thing that most people don't do. They'll just look at some short-term data and say, this is great. But that's not true. You really want to look at both short and long-term. I would use critical thinking, which I can share some of my ideas and my protocols, which I'll share with you what has been shown. In fact, there's a doctor who recently studied my methods and the results were unbelievable. He literally can't believe it. Some people have even said it should be worthy of a Nobel Prize because the stuff that has been happening should be technically impossible, according to the medical field. And so that's how my brain worked. And I also looked at ancient scriptures and ancient wisdom to understand ancient wisdom that had to do with how we can improve our health also. So I would look at all of it and compile it and try to create these protocols that ultimately I created that appear to have saved my life. And like I said, other people have been using it. And then if I were to tell you just a list of stuff that I have personally seen from this doctor, he's the latest one actually, and to really see what it's been doing is just unbelievable. And there is actually a lot of medical data on, for example, the people know me as the Hydrogen Man, right, on YouTube and whatnot. And that's because I read literally after that prayer, I stumbled upon the hydrogen research about 2 weeks after that. And when I was reading a lot of the scientific literature and medical data, to be quite honest, it was like really boring to me. I had a hard time absorbing it and really understanding it to the level that I would like. And that was very frustrating for me. And I don't know what happened, but after that prayer, like I said, within 2 weeks or so, things started to come easy to me. And then I actually have visions and intuition. Sometimes I get it when I wake up, sometimes in my dreams, sometimes it just comes to me. Sometimes I get like a vision of it. And I begin to understand what the human body is really doing, simple aspects. And that was what helped me also create protocols. So it's been a combination of things. And they're not super complicated. I should say this because I think it's important. I use almost no supplements. And so I know the world is like, everybody wants to sell you a supplement nowadays. I personally believe, just my opinion, I really think that the world of alternative health has gone down the path of what the pharmaceutical field has done. Everybody sees money, and when they see that, the vultures come in and everybody wants to sell you some pill. And I'm not a fan of that, mostly because the data really shows, for example, if you were to test food for nutrients versus like a pill, like a multivitamin, clearly the food works better, functions better in the human body. And I believe that to be because our ancestors ate food for nutrients for thousands of years. And I think that's why the body biologically, physiologically responds better. But there's little tricks that I discovered. I could share some with you if you're interested. And I can give you an example of how my brain works. So that I want people to understand why these methods are so simple. And I'm a little shocked that nobody's figured it out yet. But I have, in my opinion, I figured out a lot of it. And I think it can be very helpful to transform people mentally, physically, and on a spiritual level. It's a little different, though I do think biology can affect you spiritually. In fact, I think it goes both ways. You know, biology can affect us a certain way, and our spirit and our heart affects us a certain way. But one thing that I realized, because I did a lot of meditation too, I realized you have to, if you're going to try to achieve ultimate happiness, because happiness was a big one for me. I did suffer through depression, of course. And one thing I realized is you have to learn, yes, how to feed the body. That's important. But you have to learn how to feed your soul, you know? And I don't think people think about that a lot. And the body, I figured that part out. I could tell you blood work that I've done in regards to overcoming nutritional deficiencies, which almost everybody's deficient in something. And it's important because we know the deficiencies are linked to disease. We know this. This is not a question in the world of science. If I gave you an example, if you're deficient in vitamin C, then that leads to scurvy. You don't need a pharmaceutical to fix scurvy. You just need some good old vitamin C, right? And so I believe this is part of my protocol. I want to overcome all nutritional deficiencies, which I've done. So that was a big one. But as far as feeding your soul, I believe that the way you do that is by doing exactly what Jesus said when he was asked what the most important of all his teachings is. He didn't say the most important thing is to give 10% to the church or something. He didn't say that. You know, coming from the horse's mouth, as they say, he said, love one another as I have loved you. And so that's, I believe, that's how you feed your soul. And in all that you do it in a loving way, in an honest way. And so, you know, that's my method and my belief on that, which is why instead of trying to promote, you know, a million products on my channel, you know, I don't do that. I only show what I have done. And they're very simple things, from learning how to clean your water. I actually have a third-party lab test here. And you can see all the things. I mean, pages of stuff in our water. And it's unbelievable what's in our water. And if you think your water filter is truly filtering your water, you might want to think again, because I got proof that it really isn't taking everything out of the water. And then how I discovered how to truly clean water. And those people who want to just see what I use, because people always say, well, what do you use? I do a combination basically of what's called carbon distillation. It's very affordable. In fact, if people want to see the site, they don't have to buy anything from there. But if they want to see the equipment I personally use, because it's American made, it's not Chinese stuff. Not a huge fan of some of the Chinese equipment. But it's a website called mypurewater.com. And of course, People love discount codes. The code is the same as my YouTube channel, Uprising 144K. But if I give you one example, have you heard of PFAS, the forever chemicals?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so I'm just going to give you one example. Here we go, just so you can see. There's tons of stuff. But so here's a couple PFASs. And these were the levels detected in the water after carbon distillation. Detection, 0. Look, all the zeros, because everything is eliminated when you go through this process, including viruses, bacteria, parasites, mold, basically certain pathogens. I was really shocked. I became a water expert. I learned everything about water in order to create my protocols. I was shocked to find out we were testing positive for radioactive contaminants in our water. And if, again, you look at this process for filtering it out, you're going to see it eliminates 99.8 to 90, greater than 99% of all those contaminants in our water. This specific method, not your average water filter, not reverse osmosis, none of this stuff. And then, of course, the biological contaminants. But the big question is, who does this affect the most? In my opinion, it affects everybody. Everybody should have clean water and clean air. That's part of my protocol. But who does it affect the most? The babies, man, the children. Their brains aren't fully developed. Their kidneys aren't fully developed. Their bodies aren't fully developed. And these contaminants, in my opinion, affect their ability to, when as they're growing, to have the healthiest brains, the healthiest body in the end. And so I think the clean water is absolutely important for everybody, for the world. And then, of course, the hydrogen research, which the word hydrogen actually means that which becomes water. So there's a huge correlation between hydrogen and water. But hydrogen is ultimately a gas. And for those who don't know, water is made up of two gases. It's H2O, so it's molecular hydrogen and oxygen. These two are gases, and together they create water. And so water has been an absolute foundation for the things that I've done for my body. And of course, not to mention the highest levels of pharmaceuticals that we find in the water. I'm actually working with a doctor right now who he actually tested my protocol. He himself had numerous medical problems. And some of his family members, I'm not going to name them just in case he doesn't want me to. But basically, he followed my protocol and he tracked everything medically and doing blood work and whatnot. And he just wrote me like 3-4 days ago and said the results are unbelievable. Literally, like almost, he said, makes almost no sense. He said, this protocol is amazing that you've created. And the world's going to find out as long as we keep sharing. So I encourage all your viewers, the only way that people are going to find out is to share. There's a lot of people out there who are suffering medically. And it breaks my heart because I've been through it and I know how it ruins your life. It did ruin my life. And it took a lot of work. It's taken me over a decade to figure this out. And countless hours, a lot of money. And I share it all for free though, mostly on my YouTube channel, but I'm on Instagram and Twitter and Rumble and some of these places. But Twitter is the one with the ultimate latest information.
What a great introduction, Greg. I really appreciate the thoroughness in terms of what you've covered around your journey. I've certainly got lots of questions, and I'd like to, I guess, in terms of what you shared, like when you mentioned love and love one another like I've loved you, it reminds me of an interview I did with Dr. John Demartini, and he says that love and gratitude are the greatest healers. So certainly it's been a big part of your journey and a contributing factor to where you are now. Also, another interview I did with Nathan Seals, who's into quantum health, and he says water is what life dances on. So just as you said around the water and the importance of water, and getting quality water, really clean water is really important for life to thrive. So, just in terms of, I want to just step back before we go forward with the protocols. I'd really like to understand what you're doing in this 20 years leading up to your body essentially calling out for help. So first of all, let's start with what was your role or your profession in that 20 years in the medical field. What was your lifestyle like? And just so that we get some context around what sort of contributed to your body just crying out for help, and then we'll go forward as to what you did to correct and listen to your body and get yourself thriving again.
Just to keep it really simple, because it's not that exciting. But basically, I never really took care of myself. I was one of these guys. I grew up really poor. And so I didn't really have I couldn't see spending the best money on the best food. But at the same token, I didn't really understand, the value of living a very clean life. And so I would just eat the cheapest stuff I could get. You know, when I was younger, I could get burgers for 99 cents, and that's what I oftentimes did. I just always would swing by you know, whether it was McDonald's or Burger King or whatever, and just grab a burger real quick. That's what I would do. And in the house, I would have a lot of frozen food, you know, like frozen burritos in the microwave and just garbage, you know, absolute trash. And all I did was, the only good thing that I did is that I was athletic. I worked out a lot. And, you know, that's really how I did it. My biggest issue though, Anthony, was that, and it's embarrassing to share this, but I was suffering from very deep depression from a very young age, probably around the age of 7 or 8 years old. And so I thought about ending my life daily. I thought about it almost all day long. And I was suffering a great deal. And, you know, sadly, I think that a lot of my medical issues were from just the stress of that. I mean, the Japanese have discovered that stress is so bad for your body. In fact, it's probably worse than junk food. We literally produce certain poisons and toxins that have been proven how bad it is. And I think we all know that somebody could literally die of a heart attack just from stress, right? Nervous breakdown, whatever. And so I was suffering from a lot of stress and not treating my body right. And then to top it all off, which was really bad, is I also attempted to, I didn't just attempt, I poisoned myself multiple times attempting to end myself. And that was probably a pretty bad move. I did some pretty extreme things as my body just kept surviving. I think I was actually pretty healthy and pretty strong, and I kind of ruined myself. And it wasn't working, and I tried multiple times. And then one time I pushed so hard that I literally downed over 800 pills in one sitting with booze of all things, just to make it worse. And I did barely survive that. That's actually what caused my heart condition, because the doctor, eventually I was found, and I was taken to an ER, but they pretty much told me there's not much we can do. You took this stuff so long ago. I took it like 7 hours prior to getting there. I was found on the bathroom floor. And so that was some very, you know, dumb things of mine. But I always was trying to, in my youth, I was trying to understand and actually find happiness. That was the first beginning of my journey. I wasn't physically sick at the time. After that whole journey, and I also had, I don't tend to talk about this a ton, but I did have quote unquote what they call an NDE, you know, the near-death experience, where I did go to the other side. I learned a lot of things by being on the other side that actually transformed my life forever. I've never been the same after that. And that's when I realized the importance of Jesus's words when he said, love one another, because when you go over there, you will feel all the good and all the bad that you've done to others. And you will feel it as if you're them. So it can be very painful. Though I was never a bad person anyway. I was never, you know, the type of person to go out and hurt people. But even the smallest of things felt like mountains, like just the littlest thing, maybe yelling at your brother or something silly. So I really felt that. And that's when I realized that we are truly all one, and that it's that it's important to love each other. And also learning very quickly that life is short. Actually, it's very short. So I actually find it silly, with my perspective, that you try to, you know, people want to buy the fanciest cars and the fanciest houses, and that's fine, right? If people want to do that, but don't just remember, you don't take any of that with you. So if you spend your whole life trying to accumulate money and stuff, it's all going to be gone, and you're going to miss out on the most important thing in life. And that's why I do what I do now, because if I can help others, just the way my prayer was, if I can help others to get their health back so they can get their life back, or at least have a good quality life. None of us are really going to live forever at this time, but quality of life is absolutely crucially important to me. I know I'm not going to be around that much longer. I mean, I'm well over half my life, you know, nudging on basically 50 years old. So, I mean, you know, we on average, we live 70 something odd years, and I may even have already potentially cut my life short with everything that I've done. So I don't really know. But either way, my point is that to touch people's lives in a positive way. And that's why actually I was really touched. So the equipment that saved my life, the hydrogen equipment, it's one of the things I noticed, like, for example, people who have heard about hydrogen, you see these little bottles out there, or even like hydrogen tablets and this type of stuff. I don't use any of those, though I did, but they didn't work for me. And then as I learned, I became a hydrogen production specialist also. So I learned every modality of making hydrogen because I used it, right, to transform my life. And one of the things that I learned is how you make it really matters. And when I was following all the data, it guided me to a specific product. It was a company. And I thought, man, everything's so perfect with this machine. What's the deal? Why is this the only one? Why can't I find anything else? And I found that most products are made in China. And so I find this amazing machine, which I took a plunge. I got it. For those who want to see what I use, it's a website called holyhydrogen.com. Great name, by the way, Holy. We'll talk about holy water on planet that Mother Nature makes too, because I observe nature a lot. But this particular piece of equipment is actually what transformed my health. My heart condition went away after using that equipment. My cardiologist verified that. He was shocked. And so after this whole process, this is what's amazing, Anthony. This is the part I really want to share, and I hope people understand the value of this. I didn't know who made this machine, right? I just looked at the data. I found out many years later that the guy who basically made this machine had a daughter. His very first daughter that was born with severe medical issues and different conditions. And he was told by his doctor that his daughter was going to be lucky if she made it to the age of 3 or 5 years old. And that's a very sad thing, right? His first daughter, he'll never see her go to college. She'll never have a normal life. And in Japan, he knew and heard about the most recent medical data about hydrogen, molecular hydrogen specifically. And he wanted to give her hydrogen based on the data to see if it would help. So he went out and actually bought a lot of these products, even some of the stuff I just showed you in different products. He presented them to the doctor, and the doctor told him straight up, he's like, you can't give that to your daughter. And he's like, why not? He said, potential impurities. He said, your daughter is so sensitive. If you give her any minute impurity, it could end her life. And he's like shocked about this. So he set out on a journey, which I still can't believe he did this. He set on a journey to find the best hydrogen, which he couldn't. It didn't exist. So he had to create it. And he went out to top engineers in the world of hydrogen in the world, but they happen to be in Japan. So he got Toyota to get involved, which is crazy because, Toyota, they're big time. He got Yamaha, they're big time too. He got engineers from Kobe Steel. I don't know if you know about Kobe Steel, but the science of metals, so I had to learn a lot about the science of metallurgy, is crucially important to doing hydrogen correctly. And then he also got another company. I don't know if you ever heard of G-Shock, the watch company. So a lot of electronics involved in doing hydrogen the right way. So he built basically the best machine in the world. And guess what? His daughter's almost 18 years old now. And she is apparently a medical miracle. There's nobody on planet Earth with her conditions who have ever survived that long. And that's pretty remarkable. But here's the part that I love about the story, Anthony, is it came from his heart. He didn't try to cut corners. I actually found out later that I was told that he literally tried to go, or actually people encouraged him to go to China, right? And to try to do this cheaper. And he's like, I'm not going to do this in China. I'm going to do this in Japan. Everything's going to be done in-house. I want to make sure that it's all done properly. I don't care about trying to save money. And these are the type of things I believe that feed the soul. You do things from the heart. You don't try to cut corners. You're trying to make something that's good for people. And his device obviously has touched many lives. I've seen literally amazing things, obviously for myself. And this guy, one of these days, I've never met the man, but one of these days I hope to, because I have to give him my respect for a guy who went out to do the right thing when the majority of people kind of don't. And I say that because since I've been doing my YouTube channel, I get approached almost daily from different, people that want me to promote products, which I won't do. I'll only share what helped me. And I was approached by this company that wanted to do like supplements, right? And when I saw how they were doing it, I'm like, why don't you guys do this, which would make them more purity, a better product? And they said, well, it's more expensive and we're going to make less profit. And I'm like, but it's not as good for people. And they're like, sorry, that's what we want to do. And I said, I'm not going to be involved with that at all. I don't want no part of this. And that's what I think about doing things from the heart, to love your neighbor in everything that you do. If you're going to make a product, make the best product. If you're going to grow food, grow the best food without chemicals and pesticides and all this stuff. Whatever you're going to do, you should do it to the highest form of love if it's going to touch people's lives and affect them. And I believe that that's very important for feeding the soul and even bringing your ultimate happiness and even like karma, right? Coming back at you. So that's kind of the way that I really view this whole thing. And that's been my journey.
I love how you've just put it out there in terms of, you want to meet that man, and that man was going to appear in your life. What's his name?
Hida.
Hida.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'll be trying to go to Japan again. I was there not long ago studying a lot of the hydrogen production methods, because there's many different ways to make hydrogen and some which are better than others. And so, yeah, I hope to meet the man and maybe even his daughter and just give my gratitude. And gratitude, by the way, that's what I discovered too, is one of the huge things for happiness. When I was young, I was physically fine, physically capable, and I was not grateful for the health that I had. And when I couldn't walk, oh man, that was so painful. And just getting just walking, I have such a deep gratitude for it. And so I realize now that gratitude is a huge component for happiness.
100%. Yeah, love hearing that. In terms of your heart condition, what were you diagnosed with?
So basically, I had a very irregular heartbeat where literally my heart would just stop and then it would beat a couple times. And it was very erratic. It was all over the place. And the cardiologist told me, look, your heart is, by beating like this, it's wearing out, and he said most likely need open heart surgery. I mean, one of the things that they use hydrogen for in Japan is for the heart, for heart attacks. In fact, there's an interesting testimonial of a woman who's almost 100 years old, and she had multiple heart conditions. And her cardiologist told her, it's like, look, you would technically need heart surgery. The problem is, it's like, you're almost 100 years old. I mean, this is not something we're going to do in your weakened state on top of it all. And she was advised to just enjoy every single day and do the most she can with her life until she dies. Well, her daughter heard about me, and she put her on the hydrogen protocol that I do for myself. All her heart conditions went away. I literally got an email from her doctor. I actually did a testimonial video on it, because not only were they so blown away, on top of it, she was on certain pharmaceuticals for over 30 years, by the way. And they had to take her off of these pharmaceuticals on top of it all, because the hydrogen was just so incredible. And that's not the only story I've heard about the heart conditions. So, and remember, heart disease is one of the leading causes of death in America, heart disease and cancer. And I think that if everybody in America just cleaned their water and used the best hydrogen in the world, man, we would see a dramatic shift in those numbers, in my opinion. That's just my opinion. And I hope that in the near future, they start realizing this. But the good news is this is already accessible to us. The equipment, whether it's the clean water to make the best hydrogen, it's already there. And it doesn't cost $30,000, $50,000, $60,000. It's very accessible, which has been really wonderful too. You got to have it to be accessible to the average person.
What a great segue into your protocol in terms of your recovery journey and what you did in order to, I guess, reverse a lot of these symptoms and heal your body. So let's start with, your number one. What was the number one protocol that really helped shift the needle?
And so I have I have many different protocols, and I would say different levels depending on what effort you want to put in, and also the severity of your medical issues, right? And so foundationally, you always have to clean your water. There's too many things, as I was showing you earlier, too many things in our water that, in my opinion, are very detrimental to our health, including microplastics. Microplastics are found the highest levels in our water. So that's the first thing, clean your water. Clean water is great foundationally, but in my opinion, it's not really going to transform your health. It's more of a preventative, preventing things from coming into your body. When you put the hydrogen in there, that's the powerhouse. In fact, one of the things that I did learning my protocols is observing nature. So nature is what taught me both how to clean water and also taught me about the hydrogen. Have you ever heard of a place called Lourdes, France, or Lourdes, France?
No, please tell me about it.
So in Lourdes, France, there's water there that people would drink from, and they were having these crazy medical issues disappearing. And for the longest time, they thought, because it's like a Christian thing or Catholic thing, and for the longest time, they thought it was just like a placebo. And we know the placebo is a powerful thing. And so that's what they thought. But they were tracking so many people because the stories were so many of them. And they started seeing that there really did appear to be something that was biologically, physiologically happening. And so they were studying the water. Nobody could figure it out. Everybody kept saying it's just H2O, until the Japanese figured it out, because they're so detail oriented. They found out that water has high levels of molecular hydrogen gas in it. And that's when they started trying to mimic the water in labs. And I actually saw a lot of the footage and read a lot of the reports on the effects on mice. It was incredible. Truly unbelievable. In fact, some of the first research was showing the power of it for the mitochondria. And now we're learning that a lot of medical issues are related to mitochondrial dysfunction. And so it was really quite remarkable what it was doing. I mean, they have over like 200 diseases up to date that they've shown hydrogen appears to be effective for. there hasn't just been done like 20 studies or 100 studies or 500 studies. There's been over 2,000 studies, Anthony. I'm almost thinking that nothing's ever been studied to this extent. A lot of doubters, but as me too, just so people know, I'm actually a very big skeptic, which is why I don't just believe in anything, which is why it takes me years to figure this stuff out of what's real and what isn't, because there's a lot of garbage out there. But by observing nature, it's something that there really was something coming out of nature that is the same thing. And ironically, the machine from Holy Hydrogen, they named their device after that place. It's called the Lourdes or the Lourdes Hydrofix, Premium. And so that was pretty remarkable too, to where you don't have to buy a plane ticket that's, $5,000 to fly to France and drink the water for a day or two. You can actually have it in your home. Imagine having your own spring of hydrogen water, And that was absolutely foundational. I actually worked with a client. This is an important story. I hate to share, but it's important. This particular person didn't want to change their lifestyle. They didn't want to change the way they eat. They wanted to continue to go to restaurants and have a beer and a burger and these type of things. But this particular person had issues like high blood pressure, cholesterol issues, diabetes, even glaucoma and arthritis. The only thing that he was willing to do was do clean water with clean, properly made hydrogen. And I was thinking to myself, although you're doing these things, if you're still living not the healthiest lifestyle, I just didn't know if hydrogen would be able to overcome, somebody living that kind of lifestyle. Because a lot of my protocols do involve changing your diet also. And he didn't. And it was shocking. All those issues went away anyway. I don't like people to just think, well, in that case, I can do whatever I want and just drink this hydrogen water. If you really want the best results, I still encourage people to make other changes. But I think even for people who don't want to change a lot of things, I've still seen it work, which kind of shocked me. And I've even seen things that were pretty shocking for dementia, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's. Well, I released footage of a guy who couldn't even stand up because he has Parkinson's. He's walking now. I mean, this is so incredible. That's why it's been shocking to me that the world hasn't really, nobody talks about this particular equipment I've discovered because there's not a lot of money to be made in it. My understanding is that it's very expensive to build and they try to sell it for as cheap as they can. And usually, like I said, most of the people are going after the money part. And that's very disappointing to me because you're not feeding your soul that way, right? This is too important in my opinion. But I've noticed not just in the world of water and hydrogen, but it's the world of supplements, all these worlds. It's really sad for me to say this, but in my personal opinion, I don't see people trying to do it to the highest level. They're not doing it from the heart. And I think it's important to do it from the heart. So that's why I continue to do what I do. I'm doing what I promised I would do. I'm trying to share this information. Sometimes I'll take on certain people if they want me to do a consult or a chat with them or something about, their stuff. But the Alzheimer's one and dementia is a powerful one. I actually released a video. This was really great. It was, again, a daughter who had gotten the hydrogen for her mother. And this mother didn't even recognize her own daughter anymore. And she was in a home and she didn't recognize any of the nurses. And she was taking pictures, and I'm not kidding. Her eyes just looked black. Like they didn't look right. And she had a look where she just kind of, she just had no facial expressions. And as she was giving her the hydrogen, she was taking pictures weekly or monthly. And you could literally see the transformation on her face. And it was really remarkable. And I remember when she wrote me, she said, "Is this normal?" She now recognizes me. She's smiling. She goes, "It's so unbelievable. How can the world not know about this?" You'd think that they would know. So it's been really unbelievable. It's a hidden secret, truly hidden gem, much like Lourdes, France, this beautiful spring of hydrogen water there. And there's a few other places, by the way, they discovered. A place in Mexico called Tlacote, Mexico. And there's a place in Germany that they discovered some hydrogen springs. And I believe that there's some out there in the world, but we only know about very few of them because we never thought to test for such things.
Wow. So you've got clean water as the foundation, molecular hydrogen's the next level. What's after that?
After that, I really like to get into overcoming all nutritional deficiencies, including both minerals, but nutrients. And that's a really tricky one. In fact, what I was doing, because I took a whole different method to it. And, I don't mind talking about diet, but people lose their minds when I give my opinion or what I've done in regards to diet, because everybody seems to be really married to their ideas. And I'm not. I'm all about data and facts and what I've seen. So I took a certain approach based on the data actually coming out of Japan. And they did discover, by the way, that fiber, this is huge, by the way, fiber from every fruit, vegetable, nut, seed, bean, mushroom, these different types of fiber in these different compounds of foods. You can't just do some supplement for fiber. They're different and they react different. And the Japanese are discovering this, and the world really doesn't know right now. And once this comes out, just watch. Everybody's going to try to sell you some supplement, a fiber supplement. But I believe in the way nature made it, the way God made it. And so I really put my faith in that modality. And I discovered that there's been research about fiber and how much fiber the human body requires, and the numbers are massive. I'm really shocked how much the body needs. And I look at statistics, and the number that we are given in America as far as what the human body requires is actually, here's a secret, is actually the lowest number that the human body, like the minimum that it requires, but we're told that is the daily requirement. So the daily requirement is actually the minimum. And guess what percentage of Americans get just the minimum amount of fiber required? It's roughly 2 to 3% of Americans. It's a very low number. And now they're discovering the magic of fiber. So fiber has these huge, profound effects on many things, from regulating blood glucose, pulling all this garbage out of your body, microplastics, different toxins, keeping the GI system very healthy and clean, feeding good gut bacteria. We've discovered that it's highly anti-inflammatory, and even appears to be something that's powerfully anti-aging. So there's a really lot of positive aspects to that. And one of the interesting things about this particular protocol with implementing the fiber is I started doing blood work every 3 to 6 months, because my goal was overcome every nutritional deficiency, which is almost unheard of, by the way. Almost everybody's deficient in something. It's a very common thing. And hydrogen with the fiber, I discovered, has been helping me absorb nutrients on a level that just boggled the doctor's mind. I worked with a doctor. She was a blood specialist of over 30 years. So here I'm doing all this blood work, and I still remember when she called me, because if you've ever worked in Western medicine, you know that typically the doctor only calls you when there's something wrong in the results. They don't call everybody because it'd be too many people, right? So they don't call you when you have good results. Well, she called me, and man, I immediately panicked. I'm like, what'd you find? Because I thought maybe I was doing something wrong. Hence the reason I've been trying to verify what my protocols are doing. And she just said, I want you to calm down. Don't worry, I'm not calling because there's a problem. And I'm like, okay, then why are you calling? She said, because I had to. She said, in over 30 years of doing this, not one time. And I was shocked to hear this, because it should have been maybe a few times in her life. She said, never once have I seen blood that looks like yours. She said, it's so unbelievable. She said, you literally have no nutritional deficiencies. She goes, you know how amazing that is? And then I've had doctors do this a million times, and I will leave her nameless because she'd probably be embarrassed by this. She told me behind the scenes, and I've had naturopaths, I've had regular MDs, people telling me behind the scenes. She said, I have so many patients and I can't help them. She goes, I've tried, and I'm running out of things that I can do for them. And they're not getting help. And then she opened up even more and said, I have family members, my own daughter's sick, and I can't seem to help her. And then she opened up even more and told me, I'm sick, she said. And remember, I told you, I just recently worked with another doctor, numerous medical issues. He couldn't fix them. This has been a pattern that's been going on for a while, Anthony. I've been doing this for over a decade. And so she said, how are you accomplishing this? And I actually didn't really want to tell her, not because I didn't want to share with her, because it takes time to explain everything. And I said, look, it'd be too complicated right now to share all this with you. She goes, I am not hanging up this phone until you tell me. And then I was like, oh, here we go. So I was like, look, you got to clean your water, put some hydrogen in there. I'm going to show you how to make these crazy smoothies that I make. They're not normal smoothies. No, I've never seen anybody in the world make a smoothie like mine. And I started telling her, and she just stopped me. She goes, wait. I thought you were just taking like some magic pill. You're telling me that's not some supplement? And I said, no, it's not a supplement. There's certain lifestyle things. And she goes, well, geez, a lot of my patients aren't going to do that. She immediately gave up, because everybody wants a pill, Anthony. They want it easy. And I think that they have to realize that it's a lot of lifestyle stuff. And like I said, this new doctor recently that really followed my protocol to a T. He really wanted to transform his life. He had so many issues. He had like the chronic fatigue syndrome, which is not good because he's a surgeon, by the way. Yeah. And then on top of it, he also said he felt a lot of brain fog. So he wasn't real sharp like he would like to be. I don't want somebody like that doing surgery on me, man. And nobody knows, right, that your doctor is going through this. He's also type 1 diabetic. So that's another thing. Now I'm kind of shocked. I don't want to share his name because I don't want to get him in trouble. And then he also had issues with his gut. A lot of gut problems. But I will tell you, he followed my protocol to a T. And he's been tracking everything. And when he wrote me just about 4 days ago, he's like, man, the results are astronomical. He said, I literally can't believe it, because as a type 1 diabetic, he said, your protocol, I increased my carbohydrate intake, right? He goes, but this is the crazy part. my insulin intake, I had to reduce it by almost 80%. And that's in less than 2 months. So that's crazy, because I'm going to see if I can get this guy off of insulin. And that is technically supposed to be impossible with type 1 diabetes. And I've done it before, by the way. So it's not the first time I've done this. I did this years ago with another lady who had type 1 diabetes, and her doctor, when he saw the results, he tracked everything. And I actually released a bunch of her medical files on the testimonial video. And the doctor said, this should be impossible. Where did you learn to do this? And she said, well, there's this guy on YouTube. And he goes, no way, there's some guy on YouTube showing this. This is worthy of a Nobel Prize. There's no way. And I've still been doing this for years, and people still don't know who I am, you know. I've been, a lot of people have said a lot of negative things about me. And of course, there are people in the industry who don't want me to say the truth about hydrogen and whatnot. They want to sell their products, and I'm not going to name them, of course. Just let people do what they want to do. But I got to do right by God. I got to do right by my soul. And so I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to share this with people.
You're welcome. And you've got an incredible message and story, wisdom to share. So so diversity of fiber is that sort of, I don't know if it's the middle level, but anyway, we've got the base of clean water, molecular hydrogen, diversity of fiber.
What's the next one? I could go grab some stuff to show you, but basically one of the tricks that I learned, that I created, is I would also take minerals, right? Where they remove the majority of all the salt. So a lot of people think that they would use like a salt, like a Himalayan salt or something. And it's true that there's minerals in it, but people don't realize that the mineral count in those are actually kind of low, and the salt content is quite high. You don't want the salt that much. I know people think that it's good for you. There's a lot of bad information out there. The Japanese have clear evidence that salt, you need some, but it can cause a lot of problems in regards to health, and they know that. So I take the minerals, the rich minerals, and I was putting them in these smoothies with a lot of the fibers and the fruits and vegetables and nuts and seeds and all this stuff. And I was putting them in there. And the reason is because in my mind, I was trying to mimic nature. I know that food is deficient in minerals because they're grown it the wrong way these days. So I thought, I'm just going to add the minerals to it. I bet you, because this is my faith in creation, it probably works synergistically with all the food. I've been doing this I did it for 3 years. And then this was so shocking. Somebody actually must have seen my video, because there was a scientific study, and it looked like they literally were copying my smoothie protocol with the minerals. And the results, they said, were so unbelievable. They literally had people, their bones were regenerated. And see, this is my theory on how it works, and this is based on some medical data coming out of Japan. They discovered that, for example, that if you eat vegetables basically first thing in the morning, which who's going to do that, right? Hence the reason I created these smoothies, appeared to help regulate blood glucose all day long. But they couldn't understand why. Why was the fiber from vegetables doing this? It opened up a new discovery about human biology. It showed that our intestinal tract has these microscopic little holes that we didn't know about, by the way. And the fiber goes in there and trickles like a time release. And that's why it's helping regulate not only the blood glucose, but here's my theory. The minerals get lodged in the fiber. And so it gets a time release. And when it's a time release, it gives the body time to absorb them. Rather, if you just down them all at once, typically you pee a lot of this stuff out and you can't absorb it all in one bunch. You need it regulated, and that's the magic of fiber. I believe that that's a huge component of why I'm getting crazy nutrient absorption. Because when the doctor who did the blood work, I hate sharing this part because a lot of people act weird, but this is what happened. This is the truth of what happened. She asked me, she goes, what kind of diet are you eating? Right? And I'm like, oh, here we go. And I started telling her what I was eating. And then she stopped me and she goes, wait. Are you telling me you don't eat meat? And I said, I don't eat meat. I'm not against it, by the way. But if you are going to eat meat, the data clearly shows that you have to give your body time to break it down. And there's data about this. So I don't personally eat any, but if it was a protocol that somebody wanted to, you can only eat it so often, every so often. You can't eat it all the time. And so what happened was she was shocked. She goes, there's no way you have these nutrients without eating meat. And then she said, let me guess, you've only been on this crazy diet for like 6 months. I said, it's been over a decade. And she just lost her mind. She goes, this can't be real. And this is not the only time that I've boggled some of these doctors, and I'll share an interesting study that they did on me. So basically, she just said, this should be impossible. And then I thought to myself, well, then how am I doing this? I mean, I do know what I'm doing, but why is it reacting so good? Because I didn't, I was doing the blood work because I wasn't sure. I found some preliminary research. See, the gut is so important. It's responsible for almost 80% of our immune system. In fact, we've never identified all the bacteria in the gut yet, okay? And so one of the things that I found is data about fiber and hydrogen that appears to potentially, I'm creating such a awesome gut microbiome that it appears that I'm actually potentially creating a lot of my own nutrients, about roughly 40%. That's bonkers, because when your body produces it, it's way better than a supplement. Like, for example, like glutathione was a big one. Everybody wanted to sell you a glutathione supplement, but they realized that it's better if your body makes it. So then what did they do? They tried to sell you something, ingredients that your body will use to make glutathione. But if you overcome all nutritional deficiencies, it shouldn't be an issue, right? And I show how to do that pretty simply and it's pretty easily, in my opinion. And so I've been learning, as we go. And the other test that they did on me, this was really wild. This is a guy. He said, I want to test the hydrogen man. So he invited me to his clinic and he's like, don't worry, I'll do it all for free, because I wasn't really crazy about doing this. One of the interesting studies, I don't know if you've ever seen this before, he had a ton of equipment, but he had all these machines that actually measure the gases coming out of your mouth. Have you seen these tests?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and a lot of it's to measure the whole ketosis and all this stuff that people are really interested in. So this guy is a carnivore guy. He's like, I believe in carnivore. I don't eat any carbohydrates, blah, blah, blah. And he's like this, he's a muscular guy. He's in great shape. He's super athletic. He's a really great guy too. Really like the guy. And he's really wanting to do the best, right? Which I totally get. So he has all this equipment and he explains to me, these are the numbers that we're going to see. He goes, the final measurement is going to be between a 1 and a 5. 5 is the worst. 1 is the best. He said, every time I have a client come in, he goes, almost all the time, they're always testing at a 5, standard American diet, whatever. He says, people who I've had who try to be really healthy have tested at a 4. He goes, but it's mostly 5s. And then he told me, he goes, but the person who's tested the highest I've ever seen, he said, is myself. He goes, I got a 3. And he goes, it's from deep carnivore, or he said also fasting. And I was like, all right, well, let's see the test, because I don't mind testing because I want to see if what I'm doing is working, not working. We're here to learn, right? So he does the test on me, and I my levels were at a 1, and he was like, that's impossible. Nobody scores a 1. He says, something's wrong here. He took all his equipment. He said, let me recalibrate it. Give me 20 to 30 minutes. Recalibrate all the equipment, because it has to be very calibrated to get accurate readings. He did it again. I tested at a 1. He goes, no, he's losing his mind. He's like, no, this can't be real. He goes, let's do it one more time. Tested at a 1. He goes, okay, hold on a second. He goes, you're tricking me. How long? You've been fasting, haven't you? And I said, no, I'm not fasting right now. And he said, when was the last time you ate? I said, about 2-3 hours ago. He says, this should not be possible. He said, wait a second, what are you eating? And then I went into the fiber and all the different things that I eat. And he's like, this is crazy. I didn't think anybody could test like this, eating the way that you do. And so that was another one. And then he put me on another piece of equipment. All his equipment, I tested off the charts. Like, you couldn't test any higher. And he said he'd never seen results like that. And eventually he got right on the clean hydrogen water immediately. He's like, I need to get on this stuff, because he's really into his health and taking care of himself. And you should see what it does for the world of athletics too, not just health. And actually for beauty, by the way, they use it in Japan because of the way that it appears to have a profound effect on the skin and collagen production, and a lot of other anti-aging properties. In fact, in Japan, this is really interesting. They can literally take your blood and tell you roughly what age you are, the age of your blood. They took a gentleman. They said, we don't want you to change anything in your lifestyle, eat what you normally eat, live the way you do. They tested his blood, and then they started giving him hydrogen water, just hydrogen water, not even the hydrogen gas inhalation. In my opinion, the water's foundational, inhalation second. The equipment that I use from Holy Hydrogen does both, and at a perfect levels on everything. So I'm very impressed by that. And so after 1 year of drinking the hydrogen water, they tested his blood again, and it was showing up as 5 years younger. So that was pretty powerful. So it seems to have this profound anti-aging effect, which, by the way, makes only sense in regards to health, because here's the weird thing. In your whole life, did you know, let's say this was a pile of money, and did you know that 90% of all the money you'll ever spend in your health or healthcare, you'll spend 90% of it in the last 10 years of your life? Mm-hmm. So to me, it's a clear indication that age has to do with medical issues. I think we all know that, but what we realize is if something's anti-aging, most likely, probably not every time, but most likely it's going to have a profound effect on our health, So I don't know if that answers your question, but all this stuff is just fascinating.
It does. I'm building this pyramid. So we've got clean water,
Yeah, yep,
and next is molecular hydrogen. Then we
yep,
have diverse range of fiber, fruit,
yep,
vegetables, nuts, seeds, and then the next layer, minerals.
yep.
What's the next layer?
Well, the other thing that I put something in my smoothies with all my fruits and vegetables, nuts, seeds, beans. I can show you the product if you want. Here, I'll just grab it for you just to show you. But basically what it is because I saw the research on multivitamins and the effect, obviously, that they have on the human body versus food, well, I thought to myself, well, if food has a more profound effect, but food is deficient, what did I do? I went and found this product. It's from a website called ishoppurium.com because they're really into high purity. That's what's important to me, okay? And of course, if they want a discount code, same thing, Uprising 144K. That's how you support what I do because I want to do everything for free. Every ingredient in this is food, everything, and superfoods, right? And they're really into, let's see where it says it right here. This is important to me. Oh, the quality of your food. So it talks about purity, right? So I put this powder in the smoothie. So it boosts up, the nutrients along with all the foods and along with the minerals. So what I've created is this smoothie is my multivitamin. It does fill me up. It is my detoxifier. It's everything to me. Part of the protocol too has to do with water in your food. I don't think people understand this. This is why I don't like dried food. So because if you eat beef jerky, it's dried meat. What people don't understand about human biology or the human body is the gut requires a massive amount of water to digest your meals. Okay. That's why part of my protocol is I drink my hydrogen clean water 20 to 30 minutes before my meal, right? This is part of the secret. Okay. For ultimate nutrient absorption, it also appears to function as an antioxidant that's selective in nature, all the things that hydrogen does. It's really magical. And it actually appears to hydrate better. Hydrogen hydrates. For those people who don't know, like people who are really into oxygen, and by the way, I'm fine with oxygen, it's great, but people don't understand that oxygen is oxidizing, okay? And on top of it all, if anybody's ever done oxygen before with a cannula, it dries you out. So it's the opposite of hydrogen, which hydrates you, and hydration is key to my protocol. So the majority of the food that I eat has to have water in it. In fact, I go as far, I could grab it here too, but like my nuts that I put in the smoothies, because I put like walnuts. I do a lot of nuts. I do walnuts and pistachios and macadamia nuts and flax seeds and all these different things. I soak them in water the night before. So every time I make my smoothie in the morning, I use those nuts because the nuts will pull the water into them and they become, whenever you bring in food that has water in it, you're bringing in more water, and water's life, right? But dried food pulls the water out of you. And so that's part of the protocol too. Hydration is absolutely crucial. Hydration makes everything work properly, and it also helps with nutrient absorption. Everything that I do has to do with nutrient absorption, And then when you start getting to the higher levels of my protocol, I'm also very big on parasites, as far as things that are anti-parasitic, minimizing my parasitic load in my body, because parasites rob you of nutrients, which is a problem if you're trying to overcome nutritional deficiencies. And they crap inside of you, as crazy as that sounds. And when they do that, they create a lot of free radical damage. And hydrogen also appears to be really great for free radical damage. So that's been another part of my protocol. And so those are a lot of components. I don't know if that really answered your question, but I hope it did.
Absolutely. I think the pyramid is getting pretty complete. So at this stage,
Well, there's a little more. But we get into things like proper sleep. We get into walking or exercise and just good habits, bad habits, stuff like that.
I think we might leave that for a part 2 because I know I know we're very close to the time at which you need to probably go to your next podcast or next YouTube or so. Yeah. I'll let you re-energize with your hydrogen clean water and hydrate and. Give that cellular energy a boost. Really appreciate you coming on the show, Hydrogen Man, Greg. And I look forward to really sharing this with as far wide as possible in terms of across all social media platforms. On my YouTube channel, I'll tag your YouTube channel in and tag you in wherever I can with your social media and get this message far and wide to really help society, because the purpose of this podcast is to enhance and enlighten the well-being of others. And you've just done that for the listeners and the viewers of this show. So really appreciate you, Greg, and putting aside the time coming on. And to the listeners, please share this far and wide. Let's get Greg's message out there to as many people as possible to really help enhance and enlighten the well-being of others. Thank you, Greg.
Oh, thank you so much. I sincerely appreciate it. Thanks for
You're
having me.
welcome. Thank you.